Are you struggling to create an intentional headspace? Unable to connect deeper with yourself? Come, and together, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm your host, Sinead Roche, and this is the Uncomfortable Podcast. Happy New Year's, everyone! I'm Sinead Roche from the Uncomfortable Podcast, and today we're going to do a really big episode all about reflection, especially as we head into the new year, being 2025. Let's get into it. First of all, I want you to take a moment and really think about the fact that you made it all the way here. I know it might not have been a really good year for you. I know for myself, there was a lot that I went through, a lot even currently still going on. And, I wouldn't necessarily say this was my year, but I'm here. I made it. And that in itself, I think many people would look at that as a participation trophy, but some people didn't make it like this. And, I think that's me being resilient in some sense. And, the fact that you made it to this podcast, that means you are someone who's interested in these topics and interested in getting better. And that makes you resilient. Be proud of yourself for that. Be proud to have the motivation to get better, to pick yourself up, to go through uncomfortable things. Be proud of yourself. This year you might not have gotten everything that you wanted to get done, but you're still here. And I guarantee it, even though you might not have seen the end product, maybe you're not even at where you want to be, that's completely fine. But you've definitely made some small progress steps here or there. If you take the time, especially if you take the time to really look at what the year has done for you, I guarantee that you'll see some small wins here or there. And overall, again, you made it. You made it here. And that's just something to be proud of, in itself. Now, as we start to look at what 2025 is going to bring us, and we'll talk about some reflection topics to look into. I keep seeing on my Instagram, first of all, lots of people reflecting on 2024 and being 2024, it brought the most broken version of me, but also the strongest or most healed. I see that. And then I also see a lot of things of, how we say okay, 2025 is going to be my year. I see a lot right now happening where it's just people have learned their lesson because no one is saying 2025 is going to be my year. And I think with that, in consideration, as we grow up, we're going to notice many more things happening in our lives. We're going to see different aspects and look at different factors. And it's just we're becoming more aware of what life is, especially as we grow up. So yeah, we might not think that 2025 is going to be our year simply because there's so much more that we're dealing with and going through that we didn't have to with before. But that doesn't mean that we're not making it a good year. That doesn't mean that we can't, have a quote unquote successful year or have a year of happiness, if that be what you would want it to be. But I think because, again, we have many different factors now playing a part in our lives, we end up chucking the year up to a bad year because we have a lot of these moments. And I think we lose a lot of insight of what happens when we're going through these challenging times and we're still being resilient and still coming out of them, even alive, even if that's the only thing that we come out of it with, even that. And so I think we become a bit pessimistic because, the more you have these negative highlights in your life, the less you're looking also the positive ones that you have. So that's what I want to do today. I want us to make a highlight reel together. Let's make the highlight reel together. I want you to think as well, okay, when I'm asking you these questions, how does this reflect in my life? What do I see? What happened that I maybe didn't really take a big mental note of? Because I think it's so easy to focus on the negative things, especially if you're trying to constantly improve. And then you just feel yourself falling back down, but you're not really, again, taking a note of, hey, what did I actually do well? Or what happened to me that was a positive thing? So with that, I want you to first ask, what are some wins that you had? For me, it was that I started my podcast, I got an internship, and I got a job. Oh my gosh, I got a job. Wow. I got through the second year of uni. For me, that's a very big win for me for multiple reasons. I actually even came out with in the 2 semesters I came out with my highest consecutive scores. Yeah, in total, like of not my entire like, educational career, but like in terms of like my uni career, which is saying something because I was going through like I was going through it. I was in the trenches. And I had the most class. I had my hardest classes. Second year uni for us is probably by far the hardest time. And I was still able to accomplish that. And that amazes me. That amazes me. Yeah. And I think another one that I had this year was I learned to appreciate myself more. Like I took better care of myself, not in the sense of just like, okay, work out or eat well or surround yourself with people. But I think even like some of my thoughts about myself changed. And I remember like, there was a day, and I know it can seem like really mini to another person, but like for me, there was a day I was on the bus and I just come back from shopping. I don't have a car, guys. I take public transportation. Yes. And I was sitting and I was just like, I love that I love the way I eat. And I know that sounds really weird, but I was just like, I can appreciate that about myself so much because I watch out, like, I watch what I put into my body and stuff like this. And like, for me, like when it comes to like, the salmon, like I'm like, I'll even get the organic shit because I'm like, I know, girl, like I know what that's gonna do for me. Or like, I don't know, I just appreciate that part of myself. And I also saw myself like noticing that in other small moments where I was just doing that. And that's not something that I've done in the past often. So those were a few of my wins. So that's one question to ask yourself. Other question is, what are some unexpected things that happened to you in a positive light? Okay, some things you weren't planning for, some things you really didn't have any goals for, right? So for me, one of them would be my internship. Not the fact that I just got it, but also because of how I grew from it. It was very unexpected and also really uncomfortable initially because I've mentioned this before in other episodes where they really made me like become a person, like a people person. And just like learn to interact with people. That was a big growth for me. And I'm excited to say that I can also take those skills that I learned in that experience. I take that with me now, like into even my current work situation. So that was something that really was unexpected, but very positive for me. I also became a neat freak. I don't think my roommates like this because I'm also the type of person who really nags a lot. But that's something I can appreciate. I wouldn't say right now, like if I look at the state of my room, it's not nice. But I did start to like, I don't know, become very much aware of those like invisible tasks and invisible chores in the house. And that's something I can appreciate about myself. I don't know if I take it now home with me, because there I know like there's other stuff. But I like the fact that I'm more particular about certain things now. I also learned to cook more, and that I'm really happy about because I've been meal prepping since like 4th or 5th grade. And there were phases where I literally just ate chicken and like eggs and stuff. And now like I can safely say, like happily and safely say that I can like cook like properly. I'm not saying this so anyone can wife me up, but I don't know, that makes me really happy, and I'm really happy to like try out new dishes. I get excited to be in the kitchen. Like as long as no one tells me to be in the kitchen, like then I'm excited. And then another unexpected thing that happened in a positive light, I had tough conversations with my dad especially, and I had one with my mom as well. And I think even those conversations were hard. I'm glad I had them because it made me change my perspective on a lot of things. And it also made me very aware of like the perspectives that my parents have on certain aspects of life. And so I think that made me understand them more. I definitely I would say, like, especially with my mom, I call her more often now. Not because of that conversation, but it's just like in general, like I lived with them for 3 months over the summer, which I haven't been doing like in the past 2 years. And that was a big change. But I would say I'm really close with my mom now, closer than before. So I'm happy about that as well. So that was something unexpected. That was positive. Then I want you guys to ask yourself, okay, what are some teachable moments that you had, or like what are some things you learned or like are learning through? So for me, I learned a lot about my anger, and I'm still learning about my anger, like why it's there, like how to control it. You know, I think that was a big aspect of this year, because I got angry a lot this year because of some of the situations that I had let myself get into. A lot of the times because of low self-respect or low self-esteem. And then I also realized, like, you know, what's the difference between my anger, like when it's actually useful for me and when it's not useful for me. So that's something, and I'm continuing to learn about that. I'm learning, this one's a hard one, to let go of thoughts and past versions of myself and other people. This one it still hurts a lot, but I know it's necessary, and yeah, I'm still learning that, which is, it's teaching me a lot, I'll say it like that. Yeah. And then I've learned that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. That was a big turning point, because I used to just like, when you have something against someone, it's just like holding you down and weighing you down. So then you forgive them, and then sometimes like you become friends again and stuff. But I learned this year, like, honestly, you don't always have to like go back. It doesn't, the relationship does not need to reconcile itself. Sometimes forgiveness is just acceptance. And I think especially like if it's just one-sided, where it's just like, you don't really need it then. So I learned that, and it was hard, but it was much needed. And yeah, so those are some of the questions that I want you guys to ask yourself. Those were 3. I had, so what were some wins you had, unexpected things that happened to you in a positive light? What are some teachable moments that you had? Now, I want you to note that I didn't ask you, what did you fail at? The reason why I say this is because, and the reason why I don't want you guys to look at anything as a failure, is because you're not done. You're not done. Like, one thing, like, I deadass don't like about New Year's and even my birthday, I don't like that this day is so hyped up and made to be so big, and like all of a sudden you think like, oh, you're hitting a restart button. Like when the clock turns like 0, like you're hitting a restart button. You're not. Your life is still going to continue. And I think we put so much emphasis on the day that you think, yeah, like, now I'm a new person. Now I get to restart. Like, no, you don't. And that's a good thing, Why would I want to restart as a person? Like, then I would miss out. I'd have to relearn all the lessons I've learned. Like, no. And I would have lost the progress that I've made that's carrying me this far along. So as you go into 2025 and you look back at things that maybe didn't go all the way planned, like, don't see it as necessarily like a fail. Just see it as, okay, this is how much progress I made within this year. Now what's next? What's next? So I don't really have like the best, because I remember like in the past where I used to think of like 2020, like it's not 2025, but like every New Year's I think, okay, like, I'm gonna get into this, get into that. And I don't know, I kind of feel like when you hype it up so much and you think it's gonna be the starting point like of something new, even though you've been working on that in the past year, I feel personally that it makes it worse. But other people also enjoy like this entire idea of having like a fresh start, because you're not bringing it into the New Year's. But I feel like this also varies from person to person, culture to culture, and traditions as well. But yeah, anyways, for those of you who right now are like watching this through YouTube or Spotify, like one thing you're gonna notice right now, my background is looking a bit different, and this is what I wanted to show you guys today. You can actually zoom in on the thing. I don't think I'll be zooming in. But this is my vision board. This was my vision board for 2024. It's dusty. I won't even lie to you guys, it's dusty. If I look on this vision board, you know, I had some expectations for myself, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how much progress I've made. On my vision board, we have becoming closer to God. We have also a lot of affirmations on here, becoming one with the universe. We have that. We have becoming, I don't know, this, what is this, like some alpha woman or something like this? Then we have in the middle a lot of like, you know, never stop being a good person because of bad people. Be more grateful. On the side, we have what can we control, what can't we control, a lot of mindset stuff. Then I have friendship. Then I have relationships. That didn't happen. Then down here, I have more on the business side, like, okay, you know, what are we going to do to get that up? Then I have a lot of like self-care in between. And I personally like this vision board. I will keep it for 2025 and make one as well for 2025. But moreover to that, like I had this vision board in my room. I like to look at it and it kind of reminded me of certain things that I want to achieve. Not that I achieved them in the year. No, I did not. But this is all about mindset for me. And so it's not something where I was like, I'm gonna make it like 100% 2024. Which is okay. Now, I did have other goals, though, that I wanted to bring up to you guys today that I had for 2024. And I wanted to also do like kind of like a quick check on those goals. And I think, you know, as you go into 2025, whether you're making vision boards, SMART goals, habit changes, challenges, or you're doing bingo boards or checklists, like understand that you have to make your goals also realistic, especially if you're trying to accomplish them within 2025 alone. Right? So this is very different from a mindset change. Okay. If you're focusing on trying to change your mindset, please don't rush that. If it's habits and other like things that are more about action versus thought, then that's a bit different. But now let's talk about some of the expectations that I had for myself. Now, I also had, separate from this vision board, I had a Google presentation. I love doing presentations. It makes me so happy. What I have? Oh yeah, I had a Google presentation with every month, like a new, like my new goals and stuff, like even from like the preceding month, the aforementioned month. And then I had like checkups like with in between. Then I had like, you know, reflection questions for the month and stuff. And I really stopped doing them like the last 3 months when I came back to uni because I couldn't handle I think I just lost it, like honestly. But some of those expectations that I had for myself was starting a business. That did not happen, but I started a podcast. Reading more. I wanted to become a more detached person, and I wanted to fully heal from my first breakup. Now, some questions to check them on were they realistic looking back on the year? Were they realistic? No. The reading one should have been, but I read a lot for class and I also read a lot for this podcast. And so sometimes it can be a bit difficult. Then I had wanting to come up with a business. I didn't have a business idea at the time. Then I have the detached person and like healing from a first heartbreak. See, those are mindset things. That's very different. That's not realistic, like for I need to get this done, you know. Unless you're that type of person who's able to just like, you know, just control your mind like that. But I'm not like that. So that's one question I asked myself, like, you know, looking back and even making these new goals for myself, are they going to be realistic? Then ask yourself, did you set yourself up to succeed? Were you in the environment that was made for that? And did you have interruptions in life? So as you reflect on this past year and as you even look towards the next year, also count in, was there something that was like coming in between of this? The reason why you ask yourself that is because like that allows you to understand where you have to give yourself grace, you know, and instead of, don't see that as like an excuse for why you didn't accomplish something. That's a genuine reason why certain things just don't go to plan, you know? And with all this said, you know, I think it's so great, like if people, like when they come into the new year, they want to do all these things, and they want to change their habits and change their mindsets and things. But when it comes to habit changes, start small. Don't go in all at once, especially if you haven't done it before, because you need to build up the habit, build up the practice with it, build up the discipline with it, which is especially necessary when you lose the motivation. And I think it's also really important to keep in mind that if you lose it one day, that doesn't mean that the next day you can't start again. That's why I personally don't even like challenges like the 75 hard, because it requires you, I think it's cool, but I think it requires you, if you haven't done it before, just constantly restart, and you just feel kind of shitty about yourself that you messed up in the first place. But the goal is just keep practicing, even if you fall down once, keep practicing, and I think take those pieces of advice when it comes to those habits, those changing of habits. But when it comes to changing your mentality coming into 2025, first of all, don't rush that. Don't rush that. Don't rush that. I would say have those in mind, have those focus, be focused with them. But I think what's most important, because you have to, again, with the time, you're not going to get it done in 2025 alone. And this is not supposed to be against your motivation for it. No, but it's just that takes understanding and so much awareness of who you are as a person. And that is exhausting and time consuming. I do it on this podcast all the time. I do it in my general day-to-day life. And sometimes I'm oh my gosh, this is a lot of thinking for the day, That takes time. Sometimes you need to take breaks with it as well and just be But with that said, when it comes to mentality changes, what I really tend to do, is that I tend to create genuine awareness, about myself. I reflect on my patterns and my behaviors. And I think it's truly when you can understand yourself and you understand yourself internally and why you do certain things, that you're able to curve the pattern and able to sometimes justify your reasons for things, but also sometimes you're just able to explain to yourself, oh, we didn't actually need to do this because at the bottom, when it comes down to the, the nitty gritty parts of it, this isn't necessary. This doesn't really align with us. And this is why, we've been doing this in the past, but let's not do this now. So it's just really going really into depth with yourself. And that takes time. That takes patience. And, I think, again, anyone who's listening to this podcast, you probably have a lot of aspirations, very ambitious. You maybe want to change your mindset because you realize that the current mindset you have, it's not going to work in order to get you to the places you want to be. And with that in mind, I wouldn't say with the mindset changes, set too many, just because then it gets overwhelming. Some of them can be conflicting that you didn't know were conflicting, even though you've probably analyzed them 1,000 times over before you set the goal itself. But what I would suggest is that you pick a theme. Pick a theme for the year that you really want to focus on, understand that some mindsets you just might not be ready to get into right now just because you're not in the right environment. And that's, again, going back to that checklist of am I in the right space to be doing this? What about do I see any other interruptions coming to place? What could possibly happening to deter me from my goal? And I think that's why if you maybe just pick one theme to focus on, truly focus on for the year, and to be very intentional about when you're thinking and being aware, I think then maybe I think you'll see a lot of progress in that sense, because too much all at once, that's going to be overwhelming. But you'll see me do that, probably. Overwhelm myself, but also then realize okay, one step at a time. And with all that said, I want you guys, this is the reflection episode, really just the questions I've asked myself and the ones I've answered. And yeah, I've talked for a long time now. Ask yourself those and build off of those, start a journal, note those down. What didn't you like about this year? But please, one thing, don't consider something that you didn't accomplish this year a fail. Because remember, you're not done. You're not done. But because at the end of every single episode, I usually ask you guys a question, even though I've been doing this throughout the episode. The last question I want you guys to ask yourself is, what theme do you want for the year? Going into 2025, what do you want your vision board to scream? What mental change do you really want to see? Like, what's something what should that year be about? You know, for me, one of my years was all about like focusing on relationships. And I think going into this year, I'm not like set on this right now, but I'm pretty sure it will be on, I wanted to do two, focusing on God, because I've mentioned this before, but I think another one, not selfish, but like worldly one, would be focusing on my relationship with myself, because I think I've just been focusing way too much on my other relationships that I just need to focus on my relationship with myself and how I treat myself. But who knows what that theme will be. I'll let you guys know though when I figure it out. Anyways, I hope you guys have a lovely New Year's. And hey guys, thank you so much for supporting this week's episode of the Uncomfortable Podcast. Make sure to tune in every Monday for a new episode on Spotify and YouTube, and go check out our TikTok and Instagram for more content.